Welcome back, everyone. Today we are stepping into a brilliantly dark and fascinating world. We're unpacking an explainer that reads like a grim, gothic fable. It's really a deep dive into the architecture of spiritual decay. We'll be following the conceptual journey of a weary theologian who finds himself locked in this fierce, almost impossible struggle against what the source material calls the architects of the abyss. But he isn't alone. As we'll see, two highly confrontational figures, the archetypes of the wanderer and the jester, step in to fight back against this creeping darkness. It's essentially a masterclass in Nietzschean philosophy and the ultimate battle for the human will.
Okay, let's dive into this, because to really understand the core threat we're dealing with here, we have to look past the obvious. When we think of demons or an abyss, we usually picture fire, brimstone, overt physical destruction, right? But these architects of the abyss operate very differently. They aren't trying to destroy you physically. What they're doing is orchestrating a deliberate, methodical, spiritual erosion. Their ultimate weapon is exactly what's described in the source material, the agonizing weight of a meaningless eternity. It's that slow, creeping dread whispering that absolutely nothing you do actually matters.
To grasp how these entities actually pull this off, we have to talk about Nietzschean nihilism. Think about it. The architects of the abyss are fallen seraphs who have completely lost their own transcendent purpose, so they weaponize that exact loss against us. They want to spread aimlessness. They actively push this paralyzing belief in the eternal recurrence of all meaninglessness. Their goal is for you to look at every human effort, every striving, every sacrifice you make, and see it as entirely futile, just a broken record playing into the void forever. And that is the true trap of the abyss. It's not a physical pit you fall into, it's a philosophy that you just give up and accept.
And there's a stark, terrifying difference between physical destruction and spiritual fatigue. Physical destruction, that's mere rot. It's a visible decline you can actively fight against because you can see it happening. But spiritual fatigue is so much more insidious. It's a slow, creeping loss of meaning. It shows up as aimlessness and relentless, groundless suffering. These demons don't actually want to end your life. They want to completely hollow out the meaning from it, leaving your soul to basically wallow in despair while your body keeps right on breathing.
Now, the source material beautifully illustrates the systematic breakdown of the human will through a really dark journey known as the 5 parables of the Faustian Abyss. As our weary theologian navigates this downward spiral, we get to see the resilient human will emerge, embodied perfectly by the wanderer and the jester. They step in at crucial moments to show us exactly how to resist this descent and confront the trap of spiritual fatigue head-on. So, let's look at the first parable. We start with the parable of the wanderer's ascent, where we face what is known as the poodle's geometry. Imagine the gray twilight of the soul. The architects arrive, but they come in a subtle, unassuming poodle form. And their trick, they weaponize mathematics. They literally use E=mc² to argue that the universe is just a closed system of finite energy. They want to frame reality as a mathematical prison, with absolutely no room for a divine judge. But here's where the wanderer steps up. Refusing this comfortable little compromise, the wanderer looks at this so-called mathematical loop and just says, no. The wanderer treats this world as a path of self-overcoming, insisting on seeking the divine judge, hidden right there inside the heart of the loop. Which brings us to the second parable, the jester's mockery, which exposes the demon's whole methodology of erosion. The demon basically offers you a contract without ink. He whispers that all human effort is just a cyclical repetition of vanity. So hey, why not just trade the agonizing path of self-overcoming for a soft, global asylum of perfect apathy? I mean, it sounds almost restful, doesn't it? But then the jester jumps in. And the jester doesn't try to debate the demon. The jester just mocks him. Where the fallen seraphs preach absolute meaninglessness, the jester shatters that paralyzing realization with a piercing laughter, dancing all over their so-called sovereign law, as if it's the biggest joke in the world.
Have you ever felt this specific kind of spiritual fatigue? I think we all have at some point. The infinite nature of your soul is meant to be this beautiful gift, a truly expansive force. But the architects try to twist that very expansiveness into the agonizing weight of purposeless repetition. They want to convince you that your chains are actually virtuous, that just giving up and accepting apathy is the smartest, most rational thing you could possibly do. It's a terrifyingly effective way to hollow someone out from the inside.
And that brilliantly sets up the third parable, the wanderer and the broken frame. The soul naturally tries to reach for transcendence, trying to become what Nietzsche called the Übermensch, or superior man. But the architects mock this effort with the doctrine of eternal recurrence. They basically tell you every single heroic act is just a groundless loop, and any feeling of victory is purely an illusion. But picture the wanderer standing before a broken mirror cross.
The Wanderer doesn't see a failed Ubermensch in that reflection. The Wanderer realizes that this groundless suffering is the exact terrain where sacrificial love is proven. They carry the massive weight of eternity, not as some crushing burden, but as the necessary resistance required to force the soul to evolve.
Then, well, things get truly grotesque in the fourth parable, the jester and the homunculus. The fallen stars present this thing, a creature of pure arithmetic, born entirely from the heavy, dragging spirit of gravity. This entity is the literal embodiment of spiritual fatigue. It inverts our fierce human instinct for evolution into this fearful, huddling wisdom of mere physical rot. But once again, the jester confronts it. With undeniable energy, the jester points right at this homunculus and exposes it for what it is, completely hollow, just a void. The jester proves that this closed mathematical loop only traps you if you actively choose to accept its philosophy of meaninglessness.
So we arrive at a pivotal moment in our Gothic fable. We see the trap. We see this mathematical cage of perfect apathy closing in on the weary theologian. And you have to wonder, how do you fight an enemy that uses the laws of physics and the crushing weight of time itself to prove that your soul simply doesn't matter? How does the soul possibly escape a closed system that was entirely meticulously designed to erode its purpose?
The answer is revealed in the fifth and final parable, the threshold meeting. But first, the architects offered their final, devilish trick, a truly Mephistophelian mockery. They point to the cross, which is the ultimate symbol of hope, and they just dismiss it as an absurdity. They claim it's merely the mark of a failed superior man who died for a lie, insisting that the whole wager for salvation was completely lost to a meaningless eternity. They desperately want you to believe that all suffering is utterly without purpose.
But this is exactly where the threshold meeting resolves. The Wanderer and the Jester meet the weary theologian right at the very edge of the abyss to deliver the ultimate truth. You escape by rejecting their premise entirely. Step 1, you actively reject the paralyzing realization of absolute negation. You refuse that inkless contract. In step 2, you find the divine judge hidden right there inside the closed system. You find the weight in the vanity. You realize that your fierce instinct for transcendence simply cannot be contained by mere physical constants. You have to break the frame.
Which leaves us with this final haunting question from our explainer today. When the twilight comes and the architects of the abyss offer you that soft asylum of perfect apathy, what are you going to do? Will you accept the inkless contract of fatigue and let the spirit of gravity win? Or will you channel the Wanderer and the Jester, refuse the despair of meaningless eternity, and find the divine judge hidden right inside the mathematical loop? It's a heavy wager. Keep seeking, keep questioning, and whatever you do, do not sign that inkless contract.